Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. I am joined, as always, by the master, Paul Lawrence. It seems like a lifetime ago since we were doing our English Derby podcast. Of course, an Irish winner of that, the Laddie Dan. It gives me great joy to say we could potentially have an English winner of the Irish Derby. It's very unlikely as far as I'm concerned. I'm certainly going to be looking through rose-tinted glasses. I'm sure PL will have his own opinion on it. But PL, in March on Freddie, an English entry in the Irish Derby. Of course, you have Arthur Cornflake, Keefel Arthur. Even Greenwell Coe could nearly sort of constitute his years. He's been trained by Pat Buckley through the competition. But I think March on Freddie is far and away the greatest interest we've had from England in a long time. I think Dorotha's Wildcat came over, and he was probably the best we've seen in a long time. But here we are, March on Freddie, a proper greyhound. And a dog, I think it's safe to say, coming from the UK, should absolutely love Shelbourne Park.
Exactly. He seems the right type, doesn't he, Ian? That's the thing with March on Freddie. And if you look at his litter, his brother actually, Brindle Bully, is running on Friday in a Cat 2 final. And of course, his other brother is Bucko's Diamond, who is the anti-post favourite. And they seem a really nice type of Derby class, quality, and also competition dog, because they've got early pace and they both stay as well. So, he's got a big challenge. I did speak to David yesterday. So,
And is he confident or
he
hopeful?
no, the thing is, he's staying with Rachel Wheeler, and right at the end of the conversation, I didn't realise that March on Freddie was actually born and reared at Rachel's. So he's kind of going back home. So
Yeah.
he said he's settled in really well.
No surprise.
Julie,
No surprise, really.
yeah, exactly. Julie and David have been there for 2 weeks now. So he had his sprint trial there, and he had his 550 trial. And he thinks he's maturing as well, and he's growing up, and he's settling in, and he can see a confidence in the dog. And I said that to David as well. I was at Nottingham. I sat with David and Julie and Gemma Evans, who we had Fratton Bark with on the same card that night. And I've known David for a long, long time. I had dogs with David at Romford, and he was really nervous. And he actually admitted he was really nervous.
Yeah.
And David's normally a cool cucumber, you know.
I'm
But he
taking
said,
that as a good sign. It
yeah,
means like he feels he has the ammunition.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what he said. And actually, after Nottingham, after he'd won, and he said, "Look, how many times have you seen odds-on favourites fluff their lines in big finals and break track records in the semi-finals?" So he wasn't taking it for granted by any means, but he knew in his heart that this was the dog that he thought was a special dog that could win him a derby, if you like. And I suppose the fact that he's running well, just coming out of puppy status, and now that the Irish Derby kind of is moved back because of the refurb at Shelbourne, it's kind of all fell into place. He said he actually thought that convincing George was the harder part. He thought it was a natural thing to do, but the owner was a bit.
I'd like to think I play. I think I'd like to play a part in that now. To be honest, I sort of called them out a little bit. I saw a quote in the Racing Post one day. They were saying, "Oh, he's very inexperienced, and Shelbourne Park might be too soon for him, whatnot." And I called them out, and I basically said he's got 13 races. He's more than his brother, who's the hottest anti-post favourite for Irish Derby glory since Clare's Rocket in 2017. He has more races now than 4 of the last 5 Irish Derby winners did for the opening round of the Derby. So I got a text that evening from George saying, "Say nothing." He says, "But we're coming." And I was like, "Lovely. Let's get it on. Bring it on." It's great, but it also gets people across the UK. And in fairness, people across the UK are hugely. They always do follow the Irish Greyhound Derby. It's one of those events where you really do have to follow, but it's just that added sort of incentive to keep interested and to stay involved. And I know an awful lot of people are coming over from the UK this year, with the added bonus, of course, of getting to see the new Shelbourne Park, which really is spectacular.
Exactly, and this is the thing. I was thinking that this morning, in that, with what's happened at Shelbourne, you kind of need a focus, you need a flagship, you need something special, and Shelbourne is a special place. And a lot of people refer to Shelbourne as HQ. Even some of the lads in Scotland, in Wales, and in England
Yeah.
over here, they refer it, and it's almost like a bit of a pilgrimage to go there. And I think we've said this with the English Derby, where the Irish come over, but now we actually have got this sort of valid English challenge, if you like. And probably not as many as there should be, but even so, um, it's just that interest. And I think the fact that Shelbourne have done the refurb, they've pushed back the Derby to make sure it's all right, and it looks spectacular. And that's the package that we need to sell greyhound racing as a sport. And it was good the news as well. The CEO Tim Lucy announced about the reduction in the tote as well, and I think that's another important thing where people can go to a world class stadium and actually feel valued and actually get value out of the tote as well. So it's almost like then you've got that repeat business. So there'll be new people going there, going, what's this all about? You know, whether they go for any of the rounds or whether they just go for the final, it'll be packed on finals night. But they'll feel that they've got value with this new 12.5% tote as well. So the package is there, Ian, and that's how we need to sell the sport. And fair play to the GRI and Tim Lucy for doing that.
Yeah, of course. The cat is out of the bag. Harry the dog, Harry Findlay, will be joining us from the quarterfinal onwards. He's been beating the drum about total retention for quite some time in terms of reducing the numbers. So I'm sure we'll hear more from Harry in a couple of weeks' time, because I know I won't be able to shut him up, and I'm certainly you're not able to shut him up either. So we'll leave that to Harry down the line. But yeah, the new Shelbourne Park really it's stunning. It's worth a visit. And as you said, Paul, it's a pilgrimage for many people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying now that I'm that sort of figure, but I'll be behind the altar. I'll be behind the altar preaching to the masses from the commentary box in Shelbourne Park, and hopefully we'll have exceptional racing. And we should, because this year's Boyle Sports Irish Greyhound Derby is special. There's no question about it.
Yep.
I've been given out about the top of the market for quite some time, that it's a bit top heavy, but at the same time, I don't think I'd like to be laying the top 10 dogs at even money. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
It's that type of dog, Derby. My modus operandi would normally be look for the dog that's young, improving, and has room for progression. A lesser exposed greyhound. The Derby is 2 months later this year. They are pretty much more exposed than they would be in previous years. So trying to find one that's going to come on a spring and take off is harder than it has been. But there are little snippets there. There are one or two little sort of displays we've seen from dogs going, I think there's more to come from this fellow. And then you have to work out your own criteria. You know, you need class. You probably need the early speed. You need the right temperament. You probably do need the right person at the end of the lead. And you need a dog that probably is proven at Shelbourne Park, or that, touch wood, will take to Shelbourne Park. You know, Marchand Freddie has trialled reasonably well there. I'm sure, looking at the way his brother has run there, he should take to Shelbourne Park. We know he has class. We know he probably has the temperament. He certainly is the right man at the end of the lead. So he has a few of those criteria. Sadly for him, there are probably about 50 other dogs that have 3 or 4 of their criteria, and potentially 5. So let's get through them. Let's start at the top of the market. You've already mentioned him, Bocco's Diamond PL. I know you've been keeping a keen eye on the Irish action, in particular Shelbourne Park action, for the last number of months. You find yourself drawn to it. It's understandable why. But Bocco's Diamond, we're looking at the fixed odds firms at the moment. Just to let you know that the Antipost book will be up with Matchbook towards the end of the week, as we get towards the start of this derby. He's a best price 13-2, but 6-1 is generally available. The sponsors themselves 5-1. So, you know, I mentioned Clare's Rocket earlier on. He was 5-1 before the 2017 Derby. Everything was going rosy for him. Only injury probably denied him a chance of winning that competition. He was a special performer.
Yeah.
Same kennel, same sort of look about him. He is just seems to have it all. He's tremendous early speed. The seating issue has probably been sorted. I think, having seen him in 2 the other night, even as well as he ran from there, I think 6 is probably his draw. He reminds me a lot of Lenson Bocco, his namesake, and obviously owned by similar people, trained by Graham Holland as well. He has stunning early speed. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet at Shelbourne Park, but I think it's only a matter of time. I think he's a worthy favourite. Would I back him at 6-1? Not with free money, PL, but at the same time, if they were all the same price, he'd probably be the one I'd pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the front end of the market for a reason, because he's just not putting a foot wrong. And you're right. I was surprised when I saw him in trap 2 and he got squeezed a little bit. I was surprised, actually. And I looked, and he'd got the middle seed. But I don't think actually he'd probably end up with that sort of draw closest to the rails throughout this competition, really, because there's a lot of dogs that probably are rails to middle that get seeded inside. But you're right. He's probably better off. He's perfectly okay out of 6 or 5 or something like that. There's probably a decent draw for him. But as the the draw goes on and the competition progresses, he probably, even if he was middle, he wouldn't be too far near the rails either. So I think all in all, that is the right move, is to have him as a wide. Value wise, there's very little value in at 6-1, because as you say, at the top end of the market there are dogs that will challenge him, but it's highly likely that actually he'll get to the final, and at 6-1, I suppose you'd be pleased then, because he won't be 6-1 in any Derby final. So he's a worthy favourite, I guess, but he probably, we as punters would probably think maybe you'd be tempted more at 10-1, if you get what I mean. So
yeah, I'm like, I suppose in our sense, we felt we've missed the boat.
Yeah.
I should have been nibbling away when he was 12, 14-1. It didn't happen. Just I wasn't in a position to do it. I couldn't get involved. So here we are, and he's 6-1. I'm certainly not going to jump in now, but at the same time, you could certainly get involved. He is racing in Heat 2 on Friday night, so like we won't have to wait long to see him in action. And by all accounts, it'd be somewhat of a shock if he didn't win comfortably. Although Rye Hope Beach is a monster of a greyhound out in trap 6, but if Bocco's Diamond hits the lids, he could be 6 clear of him into the third bend, and I can't see him getting beaten. Matchbook have a sign up offer where you bet 50 quid and you get 50 quid back as a free bet. There could be worse things to do than just have your 50 on Bocco's Diamond at 2-5, because if he does things right, listen, you're going to get your score, but you also get your free bet. It's a decent offer. Just to let you know there, the bonus code for that is POD50. Place your bets and bet and get a settle at a total of €50 or £50 or more on at least 4 different events, and you'll get your 50 back as a free bet. So maybe I was wrong there in the sense where you can have it all on Bocco's Diamond. There's plenty like that, but again, €50 or £50, you get your 50 back as a free bet. But if you were going to sort of throw it on 4 or 5 odds on chances, I think he's one of the more bulletproof ones. He won't be a big price. He'll be about 3 on. And I suppose if you are taking sort of 6-1, 7-1 about Bocco's Diamond, I suppose you're considering the fact that he's already in the second round, bar a major accident or a major incident. So yeah, Bocco's Diamond. I think we both believe that he deserves to be at the head of the market. But yeah, would we back him at the price? Most likely not. I can probably say the same for the second favourite, Callaway Kinagare. He was a sensational winner of the Juvenile Derby. He has an engine like no other. He is just absolutely immensely fast. His clocks from the third bend home are particularly fast, but Derby dogs generally PL. It's not from the third bend home you want them doing it. It's to the third bend. And just his last start at Shelbourne Park, forced to check off the inside when sort of squeezed out of it. That sort of highlighted perhaps where his weakness is. It's that one single yard into the opening corner. He has enough early speed to get himself in trouble, PL, as we've touched on before.
Yeah, he's one of those dogs. He's actually, you think, well, because of his strength, he's a good competition dog, because he doesn't need to lead to win, and yet there's still that inexperience probably to him. That wasn't a great run at all, and it was hard to find excuses for him, really, in that he was trapped a little bit on the rails maybe, but he got beat a long way.
He looked like he was in the right position. Now, like, don't get me wrong, he checked up but another dog ran into him, which didn't help. But at the same time, you're going to come against. He's not going to have everything his own way through the competition. He's in trap 4 in the opening round, so he'll want to be doing things right.
Yeah, but then I watched him. I think he was in Cork out of 4, and it didn't really worry him too much as well. And it actually probably fetched him out of the traps better to get him into that position at the turn. And sometimes dogs just want to be off the fence, Ian, when they need to just find a bit of room. There are a lot of early pace types in this Derby that would only just get the 550, and they might not even be draw dependent to a certain extent. But this fella, you need to get that run around the first 2 bends so he can unleash his back straight pace and then starts a motor from the third. In the early rounds, you think, well, he shouldn't really be tapped for toe by too many dogs because of his class. So I wouldn't mind him that far out. In all truth, I don't think Fall's a bad draw for him in the first round.
I tend not to agree. I tend to agree with you, should I say? And he also is, like, aside from that opening bend the last night, he's, to this point in his career, he's looked hugely intelligent. You know, in ways he'll go in, he'll go out, and he finds a gap. And it's not one of those dogs where, oh, there's a gap, I'll make my way through it. He sees a gap and he's gone. Like, there's no hesitation, and that's what I love about him. It was his first time finishing out of the frame the last night. You know, he's won 6 of his 9 starts, and it is worth pointing out he's only had the 9 starts, so he's still learning. Dogs that are that brilliant often have to learn, you know, longer into their career because they don't see rivals. Now, because of this fellow's racing style, he's seeing more rivals than perhaps the likes of a Bocco's Diamond has in his slightly longer career. But, you know, it's still just that moment of concern. It's going to be into the yard, into the corner some night where he's dogging his inside and the dog is outside, and all of a sudden it's tight. That'll be the first test. Now, on Friday night, he's a tough enough test. Like, he's taken on the likes of House Martin, Bocco's Crystal, Bubbly Shadow is known as Merritt's Inclusion, who of course was runner-up in the Kirby Memorial, Kiefel Maverick, of course, the English runner, and Tarzan Amasai. Like, this is a red hot contest, and it just goes to show how talented he is. That I think he's trading around 11 to 10. You know, like that's a short price for a dog that's taking on such company.
Yeah, no, I think I'd be rather taking him on. You know, whether he'll be still that sort of 2.2 on Matchbook, I don't really know. But if he is, I think I'd rather take him on, and I'd probably take him on with Bocco's Crystal, because she's one of those, I think she could go wallop and claim the rails. House Martin's a dog I really like, but he's not really a natural trapper, so he tends to miss it and then go up. And I can see Bocco's Crystal, who's generally a snappy breaker, getting into the contest. As you say, the Merritt's Inclusion that's changed to into the Champagne Club now had speed and showed plenty of speed, and obviously to get runner up in a Kirby, there's no doubt in that. But she's probably drawn the wrong side of Bocco's Crystal, and the 6, the Tarsnavich in 6 as well, absolutely flying to the bend. By the way, I did text Phil Milner about Kiefel Maverick, and he said he's a bit gutted he's drawn against his mentor, which is Jeff Parnaby.
Okay.
Where he kind of learnt a lot of and built up a relationship and sort of gleaning knowledge maybe from Jeff about breeding and about the training side of things. And but he said he actually loves being the underdog, so he's relishing the change. They plan to travel. Should he obviously qualify for the next round? And as you say, it is red hot. They plan to travel, so. He said he's just pleased to be in there. It was,
he's going to need to do everything right, isn't he? Like,
exactly,
he's going to be 14. Yeah. He's going to be 14 to 1, 16 to 1 for the heat. Like, you know, outside of Callaway Kinnegar, like, Bocco's Crystal is a Derby runner-up last year. Now, she's probably not quite the same bitch she was. House Martin looks hugely talented for Pat Buckley. Obviously, the Bubbly Shadow dog you've touched upon, and the Tarzan Amasai dog for Jeff Parnaby. He's looked a proper greyhound. Now, he was well beaten by Bombay Pat, who we'll talk about in a moment, in the maiden Derby final. But prior to that, had been absolutely flying. A couple of 29.50 runs around Shelbourne Park, so certainly can't be dismissed going deep into the Derby, never mind for his heat on Friday evening. Let's get down through the list a bit more. Next, we have a couple of familiar names: Deladi Da, March on Freddy, and of course, joining them is the new kid on the block, the maiden Derby champion, Bombay Pat, a dog who I've had a little nibble at, 33 to 1. He's now 12 to 1 PL. Where's that trumpet? Oh, it's over there somewhere. There's the trumpet there. Bombay Pat, immensely fast greyhound, has a habit of giving them a length of traps, but his pace into the corner is there for all to see. He is seated wide. I think that's the right call. He has that option to switch, stay wide and go around dogs. And he has that sort of pace. 12 to 1, he's found now. There's no question about it, especially given the fact that he might give them a yard of traps. But once you have the engine and the pace, you have a chance.
Oh, he's got awesome early pace, hasn't he? That's the thing. And that's where he's going to be sort of taking the race by the scruff of the neck. And the fact that he is fairly unexposed, and what a great competition that was. The maiden Derby did follow that as well, and he looks a really nice dog with sort of my sort of early. Really, I love that sort of dog. So you did well there, 33 to 1.
Yeah, we're happy enough with that. Deladi Da. He was beaten the other evening, the English Derby champion. Of course, it was his first run back. He was racing from Trap 4. he still is a touch draw dependent, not because he's diving inwards like he used to, but more so just the fact that he's a bit like Callaway Kinnegar in the terms where he doesn't have blinding early speed. He's good early
No.
speed and he's generally a good trapper, but like it was Highview Splash, and nothing against Highview Splash. He's a very, very talented dog, but he's not going to be winning a derby as far as I'm concerned. And for him to get up the inside of the Laddie Da, I'd like to see him drawn on the fence. And luckily, that's where he is in the opening round. He'll be one of the shorter price favourites, 2 on, I'd say, for the opening round. But it'd be good to see him getting a win under his belt again and just getting back into the rhythm.
Yeah, you're right. He's actually, for a dog that's probably been left off by Liam for his prep, he's probably gone in there reasonably cold, So he'll come on for the run, no doubt. And that probably is a bit of a relief in that he should. I mean, he's no stranger to Shelbourne, and obviously being an English Derby champion, that he's a competition dog. So you don't win any Derby in the first round. So Liam would be just happy to qualify. He might be sort of one of the riskier odds-on chances, if you like, in the although he's got quality, he's still got to need to do it right, and he still needs to be match fit, if you like. And as I say, I think Liam would take third now, just because he knows that he's going to come on and progress.
Yeah, he's had plenty of trial form, but it's mostly over 2 bends. I think Liam was just trying to sharpen him up, just and I can see that, and it may well work in his favor going down the line. He has a 4-bend run under his belt now, so it should be all systems go for Saturday. And I would assume he'll be one of the odds-on chances that would be pretty confident will come home in front, given his draw. March on Freddie, we've already mentioned. There's no real ceiling to his ability as yet. He could well turn out. Obviously, in Ireland, we believe that Bocco's Diamond is a superstar. March on Freddie could turn out to be every bit as good. One shrewd man, after I sort of called out George on Twitter a bit, or X as they call it now, texted me and said, he said, I've seen this March on Freddie in the flesh. He says, I have no concerns about this fellow taking on dogs. He says he is an absolute beast. Like, he's just a monster of a dog. He said there's not an ounce of flesh in him. It's just muscle. He says just a ball of muscle. He said this dog is ready to take on the world, and I trust this fellow's opinion. And let's see him producing his very best at Shelbourne Park. Luckily, he's got a nice kind draw in the opening round PL, and it'd be just lovely to see him get loose and all of a sudden systems go.
Yeah, and one of the things, actually, when I spoke to David yesterday, one of the things that he said, when you look at what David said, he doesn't really like dogs running at the same track all the time. And yet this dog has actually been suited by, he went 7 times at Nottingham because he was in the trial stakes as well. And as David said, he wasn't always foot perfect at the start, but his acceleration actually got better, I think. I think he actually improved and progressed. And that was, I suppose, when you're training a dog as well, you can see, like you just mentioned, the physicality of a dog. You get that confidence when David was confident in the dog's ability. I think that went down the lead to the dog, and the dog gained confidence himself. And that's the kind of vibe that I got by having the conversation with David yesterday. And there's that air of confidence about him, in that he's got the tools for the job. And the fact that now he's going to go to Shelbourne, for 6 runs now, he's already had the 2 looks. It'll be the similar campaign that he had at Nottingham.
You think he'll have the 6 runs, do you?
Well,
yeah, I know what you mean.
But that's what you need. But what I'm saying is, you need to do that. Obviously, you're kind of half doubting that, but
no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
When a dog do track records and then and win quality competitions, then he's got to be a big runner. He's got to be a big runner. Yeah, good vibes. Got good vibes. Good vibes.
Yeah, I like to hear that. We do tend in Ireland to dismiss the English runners. It's something that has cost us in the past. Only last year, Winter Racing Festival, a couple of fantastic English winners. March on Freddie, I get suspicion, even though the firms have found them, that's because of the money coming from costs. I still have a feeling that there's plenty of people over here going, but sure, what's he been beaten? I looked at his races in Nottingham. Like, Nottingham is as close as you get to Shelbourne Park in the UK, and Like, this fellow was destroying good dogs, and his clocks sum up well compared to, let's say, the Select Stakes winner Unanimous Panther, who's one of our best, who actually didn't get into the Derby because of logistical reasons. There was a let's just put it temporarily as a cock up, but he will get in as a reserve. So Unanimous Panther is in there as well. He won't be much bigger than the 12 or 14 to 1. So just keep that in mind, that his name will appear back in the betting lists before the end of the week. Just keep that in mind. Cheap Sandwiches, 16 to 1. Nice dog, PL. He's tremendous early speed in the outside. Another one with Graham Holland, who can go deep in the Derby. I've been so impressed with him. I think the key to this fellow's progression in recent times has been the step back up to 550 yards. He really loves that long run to the corner. But even in defeat the last night, I thought he ran a hell of a race compared to some of the races he'd run. I thought he really ran well behind Bacchus Diamond. Not so much that he was finishing fast, but the pace he showed into the corner after missing the kick really impressed me. I've no doubt that if this dog was still available at 25, 33 to 1, he would have been one of my selections. But he's now 16 to 1. I think people have cottoned onto him a bit.
Yeah, but I've written him down as one of the dogs. I mean, I wrote down March on Freddie at 14 and Cheap Sandwiches at 16. I think, at the top end of the market where you've got, as you say, 6 to 1 and 8 to 1, 10 to 1 chances, I think those two greyhounds are the better value, and they're both wide runners, which I think is going to help. But I'm the same as you. I was really impressed with Cheap Sandwiches, and actually probably more in defeat than in victory. I really like this dog, and I actually thought literally 2 or 3 days ago I saw him at 20s, and I think that I might have just not pulled the trigger. And I haven't had an anti-post bet yet, but he would be one I would really want to be on side with, because again, I think he could come from off the pace. He'd be better off the front, don't get me wrong, and he has got nice early speed. And again, he's a fairly unexposed dog that seems to me to be improving at the right time. And again, Graham Holland can train the Derby winner, so he'd be one I'd want to be on side. I really like him. Yeah, really like him.
As I always say, seated runner with early speed. It's a no-brainer. Yeah, try and get as many of them into your bag as you can, because even though there's only like probably a third of the wide seeds compared to the inside seeds, I think it's 99 insides and 33 wides, so it's exactly a third as we speak now, with reserves and whatnot. That could change slightly, but I think wide seeds are like, they're about 4 to 6 to win it. If you actually go through and do the maths, like look at most of the dogs we've spoken there are wide seeds. We're going to get to another few of them now. I'm just going to go on a solo run for a minute or two, just get through a few more names. Boyle Sports Bob, hugely powerful type of dog, can keep progressing. Doesn't have to be on the bunny. Seven Beach has been absolutely flying at present. He's 33 to 1. I didn't think he'd be 33 to 1. He made Bacchus Diamond pull out every single stop a couple of weeks ago. He's 33 to 1. Seeking to give Jennifer O'Donnell a third Derby success in a row. Knocky and Dazzler, the Kirby Memorial champion, is now with Pat Guilfoyle. Young Daniel O'Reilly, who trained him so expertly to win the Kirby Memorial, is doing his leaving cert, which would be the equivalent of your GCSEs in the UK. He's only a young man, so the dog is going to Pat Guilfoyle. Not a downgrade by any stretch of imagination. Pat, a former Derby winning trainer, one of the best in the business. Then you have Nico Harbour, nice dog, very impressive on Saturday night at Shelbourne Park, a son of Susie Sapphire, of course, former Derby champion. Tono Charlie. Let's talk about Tono Charlie, PL. I've got to bring you in on this fellow, because he has now got 16 wins in the bounce. They decided to take him out of the staying ranks, have a go at the Derby. There is only one Derby, and I think it's the right decision. He's 33 to 1. I was glad to see him get a heat where he wasn't surrounded by early speed. Yes, he's taking on Boyle Sports Bob, who's out trap 6, but it'd be no surprise to me if he made it 17 in the bounce. And I think he's fast enough to go through a Derby. It's just a case of whether he has that tactical speed, and that could be the key. But I definitely think there's worse 33 to 1 chances.
Yeah, and again, competition dog, where you need dogs to keep qualifying. Whether you can get right the way to the final, but everything is about attributes of dogs, whether you think they can progress through a competition, whether you think they can improve, and prices. And at 33 to 1, you probably get worse 33 to 1 chances in the list. So he'd be a dog that he's actually he's beating up all the stayers, isn't he's beating them up with menace as well. So
Yeah, it's not it's been like it's been sort of John Wick stuff. Like he's just been shooting
yeah,
them in the head. Like they're just
yeah,
dead from the start. They haven't
yeah,
a chance.
yeah. So he'd be a dog that could be under consideration for someone that's looking for a bigger price, a fancier price, if shall we say? Because I have got dogs that are that 14 and 16, and that's only probably because I'm steering away from a 6 and 8 to 1 chance. Because you said a lot of those dogs at the top end, your eyes are drawn to them, and some of the value has already been kind of squeezed out because they've been backed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I think that there will, once the matchbook anti-post prices come out, I think you'll probably see a little bit more value then. Although you can't back them each way, you can still trade in. So I think that's the beauty of an exchange, where you'll get
As
those
we
extra
speak here on
points.
Wednesday morning, I've been reliably informed they'll be priced up today. So like
Ah,
there will be options, and as you say, PL, there's always a bit of value there, and you can trade. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And given the quality on show, there'll be a bit of liquidity there. It's well worth your while getting involved. Crafty Shavu has to get a mention. She was a tremendous winner for our Laurels. She also won a Sporting Press Irish Oaks last year, and in between, she was a star in the UK. She's a special lady. She was sent back because they felt she was due to go in season, and she was sent to Pat Norris. And Pat said, "I think this lady's okay. Could I give her a little trial around Cork?" And a few weeks later, she wins the Laurels. She
yeah,
looked
brilliant.
every bit as good, if not as good as ever. Maybe even better than ever in the Laurels final. The early speed she showed was phenomenal. She's always been a superstar, PL. 33 to 1. I suppose that it's priced in that potentially she could come in season,
Exactly.
because I'll
She
tell you
could do, yeah.
something. I
But
wouldn't like to be laying her at 20s.
she's classy, and I got drawn into her throughout the English Derby. I was speaking to Emily Wallace. She was gutted she never made the final, and she just made that little mistake, and
Mm.
and just got sort of done for pace on the running. She just, whether in Ireland she might just be staying that little bit better with the maybe those sort of track, Cork and Shelbourne, bit the probably better gallops, if you like, than the Toaster circuit. But I mean, she ran Toaster really well, to be fair to her. But as you say, she's class. A bit like another bitch that you quite like, Undulation.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to her in a moment, because I did my my price wise this morning for the Racing Post, and Undulation was one of my selections. She's just battle hardened. It seems like she's around forever. It just seems to be like she's been in every top competition. And I spoke to Damien Matthews the other day. I said, like, it seems like she's around forever, but people don't realize that she's relatively lightly raced. And he went, yeah, she's had 22 races. I said,
Yeah,
what? She said 22 races. I said, God, I when I said lightly raced, I meant she probably only had about 40. She's only had 22 races. It's
it's
remarkable.
incredible.
Like,
Yeah,
she's second favourite to win the Easter Cup in the final earlier in the year. Absolutely top class competition, a world class final, and she's second favourite. Yes, she was out of luck, but her performance last Saturday night suggests she's as good as ever again. And I just felt the 33 to 1 was a bit of an insult about her. I think she's come through her season, so that's not an issue. She loves Shelbourne Park. She's a strong runner, and given where she's coming from, there'll be no stone unturned. Like, this lady will arrive every night willing to do her job, and she is willing and able. She's a class act, and I just thought a 33 to 1 sort of stood out for me. Another bitch that has to get a mention, Ballymac Danica, around the 33 to 1 mark, looked a superstar earlier in the year. She only after recently returning. She had an issue with a toe, but she's had 2 races now. She looked like she needed both of them.
she
But
did.
yeah, Liam knows the time of day, and this lady has stunning pace and power. So be very to see how she goes through the Derby. A couple more I have to mention. Carmack King. At one point, I thought he was going to be Derby favourite in sort of midsummer. He won that Champion 550 at Shelbourne Park. Seems to have everything right, and just I think he picked up a niggle. Now, I spoke to Owen last week about the dog, and yes, he was beaten last week. He missed the kick and messed up things, but he trialled very well, and Owen thinks he has him back. And that's enough for me. I think he's a very fast greyhound at 33 to 1. I couldn't put anyone off. And then the next one I'm going to mention, and I have to mention him because he was my number one price wise pick, is Untold Dollar. Now, PL, you would have seen this fellow in the UK earlier in the year. He also starred at Clonmel. He won the place competition of the
Yeah,
unraced. Does that make sense? He
yes,
went out
sir.
of the
Yeah,
unraced early, won the plate competition, was sold to
yeah,
the
I remember
UK.
it. Yeah,
Well, he won the Monmore Puppy Cup and the Hove Puppy Cup. Looked at a potential superstar. Came back to Ireland, did a huge run around Curraheen Park, 27.93, and then all of a sudden, just the wheels seemed to fall off a bit. I think he went back to the UK, and when I came back to Ireland, I think the trapping was getting issues,
Yep,
different
it
mechanisms and
was.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Last Saturday night, PL, like I'm sure you were watching.
yep.
I was blown away by him. Like he does 29.37, I think it was, or 29.39. It easily could have been 29.20. He lost 2 or 3 lengths down the back straight in terms of momentum. Evolution came across him and he checked to go inside. I think he nearly clipped his heels and recovered so quickly, took it up, ran on to win in very comfortable fashion. I think this dog could be anything yet.
Yeah, and he beat a dog that I really like, in Evolution. I really like that litter, the Cash Out Cams litter.
Ballymac Cams,
Really,
yeah.
I mean, Fire and Ice, and I think I mentioned to you, didn't I? I texted you earlier in the year about Ballymac the lad. I really
Yeah.
liked him, and I know I spoke to Liam at the Derby lunch in Toaster, and he said that he'd kind of just picked up that injury, and I think they're struggling to keep him sound, but. The whole litter have got a really nice speed. So yeah, to do that to I think I think there's good quality dog Evolution. You're right. He did catch the eye, didn't he? And I suppose as well, it tells you that he can come from off the pace. When he went at Monmore as well, he held off a dog called Barntick Bear, which
Yeah.
a track
No,
record holder over here, no
no
mean
easy
feat.
task. No easy
Exactly.
task. Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, so he was my first selection with the price wise. I mentioned Undulation. Another dog I want to mention, he's my third selection with the price wise this morning, was Droopy's Bookham. Now, he is very likely race. He's a brother of Callaway Kinnegar. He ran it in the Laurels. I think he went into Laurels only 2 races under his belt. He managed to win, I think, the first round. I think he ran well in the second round. I think he got knocked out the next round. But a dog with huge pace. Trialled well at Shelbourne Park the other day. He was beaten actually by Droopy Supply, another dog that spent time in the UK, beaten 2.5 lengths in 28.03. So it was a hell of a run by
yeah,
both of them. But I just get the impression from Droopy's Bookham that he's learning on the job. And I thought he was a real Shelbourne Park greyhound. Certainly 550 yards would be right up his street. He'll stay further again.
he wants every yard of it. Yeah,
He wants every yard. He wants the fence as well, PL. There's no point in
he does.
denying it. But I took a chance. And at what, 50-1, trust me, there are plenty of dogs ahead of him the betting that aren't as fast as him. And that'll do for me. Now there were others down the line that I thought I'd give another mention to. Hawkfield Blue is a dog that just seems to not quite get the love he deserves. He ran very well in the English Derby. He's after returning recently. He did a 28.40 the night
Yep.
in Shelbourne Park. He was 125 in a place.
I've got him
I
at
just
125 there. That's what I wrote down. I thought that was a completely and utterly wrong price.
couldn't get over that. I thought he'd be 25-1 after last Saturday. He's 100 spots bigger. Just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Deadly
Totally
Choice
agree.
is a dog who has absolutely thoroughly frustrated me. He has an engine. He has an absolutely monstrous engine. He's a real 575, 600-yard greyhound. But we haven't mentioned it yet, PL. This derby is going to be run through late October and most of November. You've been to Ireland many a time, PL. We're not guaranteed sunshine, I can promise you that.
No.
Track conditions could get heavy, and maybe people have to alter their view on what type of dog you want to back.
Yeah,
I would be if I'm putting in a portfolio, PL, I'd like to have half that can fly early and half that can fly late.
that is a really good point, Ian Fortune. That is a really good point because generally, yeah, you're looking in September, you tend to get top of the ground. And as you say, the way that the weather has been towards the end of the season and end of year now, it can get heavy at Shelbourne, can't it? That's the thing. So maybe the early paces might just get, in a quarter final, a tough assignment where it's taken a bit out of them, and that's going to be again what you said at the top is that the measure of the handler as well as the dog.
It's not like it. Don't get me wrong. It's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed any night. But as you say, Shelbourne Park can get a bit heavy if it's absolutely consistent rain or persistent rain through a day. Now, if Shelbourne Park got 3 hours of rain during the afternoon and it stopped, track could be flying. It is worth pointing out that I think the current track record for 525 yards was set in December. So it can be done. They'll have the track in good nick. It won't be running slow most nights, but there is the option there or a possibility that come quarter final night, it could have been raining for 6 hours in Dublin, and all of a sudden it's 60 spots back. And
Yeah.
if you're on a dog who is barely getting, like, let's say a Romeo Taylor, right? Romeo Taylor will be calling for a taxi from the fourth bend home. Like, imagine he comes up on quarterfinal night and he's been absolutely unbelievable in the first 3 rounds. And he gets to quarterfinal night and he's been quoted 11 to 10 on a Friday morning, or the Monday morning. Come the race, he could be 4 to 1. Like,
Yeah.
that's how things are.
Yeah.
So it is worth keeping in mind.
It is.
The
Yeah. It's a
strong
good
running
point, that.
dogs can always progress, but when it does get deep, and if it does get deep, it'll really play into their hands. So it is worth keeping in mind. But anything else you want to throw at me, PL, in
Yeah, there
terms of
was one
names?
dog that I did write down as well, a dog called Tribal Sid. You mentioned him.
PL, like, if I told you what he was sold for last week, you'd laugh at me. You'd laugh at me. Now, when I say genuinely, it'd be like going around to the shop and getting a pint of milk for 15 cents. Like, it just doesn't make sense, the price he was sold for. This is a dog who has lit up Ireland this year in terms of his early speed. He's anti-post favourite for the Laurels. He's picked up in the closing yards in the International. He won the Tipperary Cup. He has one run over 550 yards in Shelbourne Park. He won in 29:30 odd, but he did 15:83 to the third bend.
I see that. Yeah, I did write that down.
Only I think only Ewan Taylor, Pastana, and Susie Sapphire have either bettered or equaled it in the last 5 years. Like,
Did
that
Rocco's
tells you all
Diamond
you
not do it 1570 something?
in a 550.
I
He did
think so.
1470. He did 1473 for the 525 trial,
Oh,
which is sensational. I
right.
don't think he did quite as fast as the 15 or 14
And am I right?
1573.
The clock, the third bend clock, hasn't always been coming up in the last couple of meetings.
I think the sensor was broken there last week. I think
Yeah.
they have it fixed now. They have it fixed,
Ah.
I believe. And it's an absolutely, sure, it's a completely necessary tool. We have to have it.
Exactly.
It makes our life much easier. But
It
this
does.
tribal Sid, I'm telling you now, he was picked up for a song, but that's given his age and the fact that he is older. Yeah, but he
Yeah.
was late coming to hand anyway. But
Yeah.
he stays in the same kennel. He's going to get his draw every night, and those nights where the track is going well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, they'll take a hell of a dog to lead him off a level
Yeah.
start.
He's got
And
some boot.
the boys that bought him, like, they're very, very shrewd. The Dubs and Culchies. You know what a Culchie is, don't you?
No.
A Culchie is someone from outside of Dublin. It's a countryman, right?
All
So
right.
it's a derisory term, but they've referred to themselves as Culchie, so we're happy enough. But genuinely, I couldn't put people off backing him at a big price.
No.
He has stunning early speed. He's
Yeah.
everything you need, bar the fact that he's just that bit older. And it, like, in truth be told, it is a younger man's game these days. The derbies, it's 6 runs in the very best of company at Shelbourne Park. There's no room to hide. Yeah. Anything else, PL, that sort of caught your eye?
No, I mentioned, or you've already mentioned Knocking Dazzler as well. So it'd be interesting now that Pat Guilfoyle, such a nice man as well, and is very, very clever with a dog. So that'd be good. Oh yeah, there was one dog, the dynamic dog that moved from the Kennedys to Paul Hennessy. Dynamic Force.
Yes.
He's got exceptional early speed. Now, I was going to ask you this, and I was talking to Lorraine about it yesterday, because we've got the brother, the Portsmouth Pedro. He's part of the Pompey Ventures. They're some group of lads, they're horse racing lads, really, but they brought a couple of dogs. One of them's Fratton Bark. He's in the scurry of the semis on Saturday, and Portsmouth Pedro. He's like an A1 dog at Romford, but Dynamic Force was a dog that, when he came onto the scene, he was sort of tightening up and cramping. He's got a really strange tail carriage as well, but
which has been asked and touched upon. I mentioned it in my Monday podcast with Tommy Lyons, and I got a text from Hennessy that night. Someone stood in his tail when he was young, and it's just grown.
Bent. Yeah,
it's just grown bent. So, like, there's nothing wrong with him. He's not feeling an injury, and it's just the way he carries it.
But it's, you know, when you get, and this is, you say this right away, you can sort of put dogs in boxes and compartmentalize them and stuff like that. But when I saw him and he looked, and I spoke to Maria and John Jr. About him when they had him initially, because he just looked like he had awesome speed. And he went, I think he won a sprint, and then he went over the 4-bend trip at Shelbourne, and he cramped. He was well clear, and he came right back to him on the running.
That night you speak of, I backed the dog in second, who ended up being the juvenile derby runner-up. Dog called Infield Destiny, found himself 10 behind.
Yeah, see that. Yeah.
Let's just say that form has been well and truly franked.
Yeah.
Because behind them was Highview Suburban third. He's a nice dog.
Yep.
There's some real nice types in behind us. I agree with you. He tied up badly that night, but he looks more and more, even more like a 550-yard dog than he does a 525-yard dog.
This is what I was going to say to you. In that, now, I don't know how good that A2 stake would be in relation to a derby, and yet we're just talking about early rounds, and you were talking about, picking out odds on chances. He just looks like there's not too many dogs that will lead him. And he looked to me, although you've got that tail flicky, this is what I'm saying about when you make assumptions. The tail flicky, you think, oh, there's something wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with him. He went right the way around to the drop in. He saw. And as I say, when you think, oh, John said he thought he tightened up and he cramped when he had the first 525 at Shelbourne. But he's seeing it out. And it's almost like you kind of doubt yourself sometimes. But this dog has got serious gears.
A son of a Derby winner. Good news. And his mother is Portumna Marina. Her mother was Portumna West, who was actually a brood bitch of the year here in Ireland. And she'd also be a sister to a certain Barefoot Supremo, who stayed every inch of 550 yards and further for Paul Hennessy. So Paul knows the family. There was also Grangeview Mac in the litter, but they're also closely related to like Grangeview 10 and them. So like there's loads of pace, there's loads of stamina in the pedigree. So I'm with you. I think Dynamic Force is a really exciting dog. Did catch the eye for more than us in the sprint. He was running like a dog that wanted 4 bends in the sprint, showing all sorts of pace. And the plan came to light. They could have thrown him straight into the laurels, but there was €10,000 on offer for an A2 competition. And in truth, like he sent off 1 to 2 he sent off 1 to 3 in the final. I think they made the right decision. And all of a sudden now they have a Derby dog in their hands. And I think Paul is more than bullish about this fellow's chances. So PL, you got to summarize your picks.
Well, the 3 I wrote. Oh, we haven't actually mentioned a dog that I've put in. That we said about the Bold Falcon.
Oh yeah.
I think he could be again another dog that is strong on the rails and keep qualifying. I think I spoke to Jamie at the Doncaster sales. I do the sales with James and Nathan Corden, and I spoke to Jamie at the sales there, and he even was thinking about trying to get him ready for the select stakes at Nottingham, but he couldn't quite get him ready in time. And I think he's had that little bit of a niggle, and he's now back. And I just thought he was a dog that was a good competition dog. He's got the 600-yard track record.
He would here's one. He would have done the 575-yard record. If you look at his next race, I don't know what happened to him. He just seemed to take 2 false steps, and then got going again to win.
Yes, it was incredible, and that's what I mean about
he's immensely fast, Pierre.
Exactly, this is what I mean about picking up. And again, he was. I think he was 40s with one firm, but generally you could get a bit of 33s. And I just thought, again, that if people were looking for a dog to keep qualifying, he'd be.
He was 12 to 1 at one point.
Was he?
Yeah, before he ran his first race, I think he was nearly 12 to 1 or 14 to 1. The owner backed him for fortunes.
To win the derby.
Yeah, and before he ran his first race, I remember getting a clip of him winning his qualifying trial from the owner, going, "What do you think of this fella?" Like, you know what I mean? And it took him a while to come to hand. He won his debut in some style, but what we did find out was that he just does lack early speed. He flashed out, and he was getting outpaced into the corner, finding himself in traffic problems. The step up to 575, 600 yards, I think he has discovered a little bit more early speed, mainly due to the fact that they gave him those sort of confidence builders over a little bit further. So he was able to hold those types of dogs into the corner, and all of a sudden the confidence was there. And like you said, like he's trained by Ginger and Jamie, like he's in good hands. And I think he could be very hard to keep out of frame in the first few rounds, no question about it.
Yeah. So it was just because I was trying to look for bigger prices. It's really difficult because we've spoken about quite a few greyhounds, and we've warmed to a lot of them. There are some greyhounds with different, as I said, different attributes, Ian, that have got quality, and it's again, I think it's all about some of these first round heats. We've got some dogs that are at the top end of the market, and they're no gimmies. No gimmies. Some of these, So I think that there was one actually I'll just mention now. He was another dog you mentioned. Unana's Panther. I backed him in the select stakes. And I thought at the time, he'd be a dog that I wanted to get first on the list. And I made the mistake in the English Derby of having too many bets too early. So I thought I'm going to wait and wait and wait this year for the Irish Derby. And obviously, then I didn't know whether he'd had a niggle or what. And I knew I spoke to James.
He did have a niggle, and the reason why he wasn't entered, I think, like, it was a cock up. There's no question about it. But I think he wasn't in Pat's initial entry.
Right.
So I put up a list of the runners there a few days ago, and he wasn't in it. And then I think Pat resubmitted his entries, and I think it was missed. I think it was missed. But he's obviously feels that the dog is right and ready to go. He's a big 85-pounder. The 550-yard run to the corner, he'd prefer the 575, 600. But like that, there's no question he has the engine to take on the very best in training. And he's already beaten them. You know what I mean?
He's not completely devoid of early. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely not.
He's a decent breaker. He's one of those dogs as well, what I call, Ian, where when he's not going to miss his break and rush up, but when he starts, when he gets a good start, then he'll show enough early pace, if that makes sense.
No, I agree.
Another dog in the kennel of Pat's that I really liked, and again, I backed him in the English Derby, was Super Fast Gordon. But he's another dog. I think if he was mine, I'd probably put him middle. But then I'm probably looking more at Toaster.
You're looking at 3. I tend to agree with you. I think I'd prefer him in the middle myself.
Yeah, but I have watched him at Shelbourne out of trap 1, and he's only edged off very slightly. So it could be that he runs a better railer at Shelbourne than he does at Toaster, and that's probably because of the trap.
He does have a habit of checking off on this company, though, and that's an issue. He's the dog I've fallen out with. Now, I will say that I wouldn't be backing him.
That's because
I know there's already been money for him for the opening round heat. So that is worth keeping in mind.
What we'll say in that heat, though, Ian, is that Highview Splash will be going straight for the rails. That is my little worry, where those two might just squeeze. And again, when you've got the likes of Undulation and Magical Sapphire in the race, Magical Sapphire showed nice pace the other day, by the way. Again, Pat Guilfoyle, the trainer.
I had a little nibble on her to be Pat Guilfoyle's top performer in the Derby.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was fair enough.
There's another little gem. There's another little gem that you've pulled out the bag. Yeah,
a sapphire, shall we say?
Yeah, exactly. A sapphire. Yeah, I mean, but I think in that particular heat, and we're going to look at these as well. You know, Matchbook will, and there'll be lots of value, and those prices that we could probably be seeing by the sponsors at the moment, they'll change. They'll change massively, but Undulation and Magical Sapphire in that heat, I would probably want to be betting them against Super Fast Gordon and Highview Splash, because I think they could come together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But there are plenty of instances like that. We don't have a chance at this stage to go through the heats. There's plenty of time for that. It is worth pointing out to people there are 25 or 26 heats. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't lose control of yourself in the opening round. Don't bet beyond your means. Enjoy what should be an opening round to savor. PL, again, just summarize your few selections there.
Right, I'm going to go for March on Freddie. Again, a wide, cheap sandwiches. And I'm going to put in the Bold Falcon, but I do like your Undulations pick as well. I thought that was fit. I wrote down 50 to 1. I thought she was 50 to 1.
She was 50. Did I not say 50?
Yeah, you mentioned 33s earlier on. So I think she's 50s. Yeah,
maybe the 50's gone.
But it could be. It's hard, Ian. I find it really hard to hold back and say, well, yeah, that's got a chance. So that would be my 3, and I might just join you with Undulation. So I quite like that.
Well, my 3 are in the Racing Post today: Untold Dollar, Undulation, and Droopy's Bookham. I was very close to sticking in a dog called Check for Cash at 66 to 1. He's got a lovely draw in the opening round. He's gone sub 28 seconds at Shelbourne Park. He's been light to race in recent weeks. I have a feeling, with the Derby in mind, Carl Ramsbottom, it's about time Carl had a big winner. Check for Cash is a very talented dog. 66 to 1 is an insult to his ability. There were other dogs I mentioned, Hawkfield Blue. Obviously, towards the top of the market, I really did like Cheap Sandwiches at around the 20-25. That's just disappeared for me. For clarity's sake, I have had a nibble each way on Check for Cash. Bombay Pat, and another dog I backed at triple figure odds, who is now around 25-33 to 1, is a dog called Carrick Aldo, former Irish Sprint Cup champion. Listen, I
Very
think it's a
nice
big
looking.
ask for the 550 yards and 6 rounds, but I'll tell you one thing, he is real class, and I could see him sort of performing the first round or two, and who knows, his price could plummet. But no, it's a great derby to look forward to. Of course, Matchbook will be offering an anti-post bet from today, and of course, there'll also be exchange prices right up to the off, and those last 2 minutes before the off of a derby heat, things get hot and heavy, PL, and you can find some real value. Like dogs we're talking about now, I think that'll be around even money. Could be 7-4, 2-1 the exchange,
Yeah.
and it is worth your while. Just dipping in, checking, and who knows, it could be well worth your while. Don't forget, folks, that sign up offer: bet 50, get 50 back in free bets. Sign up to Matchbook today. Bonus code POD50. Pod50. All the details are there. Just check it on the TNC's promotion tab on Matchbook. But that's it from myself and the Master PL. Let games commence, PL. You'll be there on November 23rd. No way I can sort of convince you to get over before then, no?
Yeah, I might do. Watch this space. Yeah, because it looks awesome. That's the thing is, and yeah, I can't wait to go there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, as Steve Palmer once put it, do an old face spitter in the opening round, something to win yourself 50 grand. You never know. We might see you for every round thereafter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's it from us on the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhound Derby podcast. We'll be back a week from now. And don't forget, Harry the dog, Harry Findlay, will be joining us from the quarterfinal onwards. It'll always be great to get Harry's opinion on things. But for the meantime, you'll have to settle for me and the Master. That's it, though, from us on this Wednesday morning. We'll see you. Best of luck with your selections in the Derby over the weekend. It's going to be a long 6 weeks. I can't wait.